Hello, and welcome to the Family Church online worship service. We're glad you're here with us. I want to let you know of a couple things. The first one is, if you enjoy today's video, please do like it and consider sharing it to your Facebook page. We have reached a lot of new people that way, and we really appreciate it. Another thing is, this week's in-person worship is drive-in. So that's happening on Sunday morning, the 23rd. Next week's worship will be Zoom instead of the usual Facebook online. And we will be doing that live at 9:30 and invite you to participate, and that way you can join in the discussion if you want. So if you're available next Sunday at 9:30 and you want to participate, either check your email, because our usual email will come out this week and it'll have the Zoom link for you. If you aren't on our email mailing list and you'd like to get that Zoom link, please click message and send our Facebook page a message that you would like the Zoom link for next week. And we will send that to you via Facebook message. That way you can participate if you like. If you want to just listen in, you can. If you haven't done Zoom before, there's an 800 number, and you can just call the 800 number, and then you can hear everything, even though we won't be able to see your face. So invite you to participate in that way. It's going to tie into something we're going to be doing soon. We're going to be offering a class, and the class is a financial freedom class. So it is a class that helps you deal with your relationship with money, and maybe how it complicates your relationships with people in your family or your spouse. And also we'll be talking about how to get out of debt, how to change some money habits, that sort of thing, and how to make the way you use money fit your values. So we'll be dealing with that a little bit next week in our Zoom worship, and then that'll be a tie-in to a class that is coming up. And you can find more info about that class on our Facebook page, but it will be offered both on Sundays and Wednesdays at 2 different locations in person and also by Zoom. So there's lots of ways you can participate, and we'd love to have you join us for that class as well. We don't know yet whether we'll be in person in February or not. We're kind of watching the numbers and seeing how things go. We might do another drive-in week. So if we do that and you haven't done it before, it's a lot of fun. We just meet in the church parking lot. Everybody parks in kind of a big horseshoe and tunes their radio to the right station. And we do a little singing from your car, and then do worship where you can see me, and might have some special things going on. But you stay in your car the whole time, so you can stay warm in your car and not be at risk at all of COVID. We want to offer this week also that if you have something you need us to be praying for, please send me a Facebook message and let me know. If it's something private and you don't want the administrator of the page and me to both see it, you can just send a Facebook message and say, Pastor Mike, can you please contact me and give me a number to text you at, or however you want me to contact you, and I can do that. This week, please do be praying for people suffering from COVID and people suffering a loss because of it. And also pray that we might all know abundance, and pray for justice and for resources for people who are suffering from poverty and discrimination. And each day take time to pray, and I invite you to pray for the Family Church as well. Thank you, and welcome to worship.
So grateful for this life I have to live. Oh, and I a heart full of love. I am so grateful, for I know my path is blessed by a love so full and graceful. I can trust in every step, for I live in a world of abundance, in a true never-ending source from above. Yes, I live in a world of abundance, with a life overflowing and a heart full of love. For I live in a world of abundance, in a true never-ending source from above. Yes, I live in a world of abundance, with a life overflowing and a heart full of love.
This is a reading from Matthew, chapter 14, verses 13 through 21. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children.
Today's story sounds like the biggest fish fry in Wisconsin history. There were thousands of people gathered to hear Jesus speak. It was not a tight 55 minutes like we shoot for at the family church, although I do admit I preached the longest sermon in my entire career a couple weeks ago. I was told it was a good one, but today we'll keep it a little shorter. That day that Jesus was preaching, there was healing, and then he had a lot to say, and it was so good that people were sticking around. And it wasn't planned to be such a big event. There wasn't even an event planned at all. Jesus was just going to take a little time to himself to deal with some things and give the disciples some quiet time, and this huge crowd followed them and gathered. So they really didn't have a plan for food. And the word spread, and more people just kept showing up. It's known as the feeding of the 5,000, but actually there were just 5,000 adult men. There were also thousands of women and children. So if you just use basic demographics, there was probably closer to 20,000 people in all. What do you do with that many people and no concession stands? Well, they were hungry, so Jesus fed them. He kind of just told the disciples to figure it out, and they managed to scrounge a little bread, and there was this boy with some fish he caught. They started passing it out, and there was enough for everyone. There was even leftovers. So the miracle was that this small amount was multiplied, and everybody had enough. We're going to be talking about miracles in February. This week's miracle is unique for a couple of reasons. The first is that this miracle appears in all 4 Gospels, all 4 books of the Bible that talk about Jesus. That means it is well known. The other thing that's unique about this miracle is the message. Some of the miracles seem to have just happened to kind of build Jesus up and make him seem legit. But this one has a different message. There's enough for everyone. We live in a world where a few billionaires have enough to feed the whole world, but instead they build private rockets. We live in a world where a few nations have so much wealth, while the rest fight to keep the resources that they have away from people. They fight over them or have civil wars. We live in a country where people argue about resources and try to keep them away from people because of the color of their skin or because they're transgender. We act like the pie has only 6 slices and that we deserve 5 of them because we work harder than everybody else. In fact, there's plenty of pie to go around. I remember this scripture, and I get a little bit suspicious whenever our leaders point the finger at someone and tell us that they are the source of our problems. It works. It keeps us angry about gay marriage or transgender athletes, so we don't notice that us feeling resentment against a small group of people, well, that keeps us from noticing what our leaders are doing as they cash in for themselves. We live in a world of abundance. Even with over 7 billion people on this earth, and numerous studies have shown that we have plenty to feed and clothe and house over 7 billion people, yet so many of them live in poverty. There's enough sunlight, enough soil and water, so that we can all have food and water and shelter. The miracle of our natural world that God put in motion for us is that the world can supply what we need. Our nation has enough resources to sustain all of us, regardless of the details of our skin color, gender identity or expression, or our background. One time, I talked to a woman after a funeral. Sometimes that happens. You do a funeral and then you meet some people after and they don't have a lot of connections to a church, and so they take that opportunity to talk to the pastor. Now, this woman was so excited that things were going so well for her. She lived in a trailer out in the country with a guy she'd been with for a very long time. He was partially disabled and partially lazy and alcoholic. Neither of them had any education or job skills, and he chose not to work. She worked for minimum wage. Yet she was so happy at the abundance that she had. It was a fascinating story. She told me she'd had a great year fishing, and we swapped fishing stories, and I had some great fishing outings on the river as well. She had lots of fish in the freezer. And her garden had done well. There had been no droughts, and everything had come in really well, and she canned lots of vegetables. And then she got a deer. And she also made her boyfriend get a hunting license. He was not a hunter, but she made him get a license and come sit out in the woods quietly with her until she shot a deer on his tag too. It was the first year she could remember where she felt like she had enough. She wasn't worried. She said, "I don't even know if we'll have to go to the food pantry every month." She thought she could make it all the way till summer on food that she had provided. She was bursting at the seams, excited to tell me about it. And it helped put things in perspective for me about what we really need, what's enough. There is enough food in the world. And there is enough love through God to sustain us all. And that's a miracle we can all be excited about. This week, I invite you to think about the abundance you do have and think about how you can share it with others. Amen.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.